When purchasing tailor-made project deliveries, the customer usually arranges a tendering process in which potential suppliers and their proposed solutions compete against each other. From a customer's point of view, there are several reasons for organizing a tendering process. First, by building competitive tension between potential suppliers, the customer can often push down the price it has to pay for the project. If there were no competition, a single supplier occupying a monopolistic position might be able to benefit at the cost of the customer. Secondly, tendering can also provide the customer with the opportunity to gather information about alternative technologies and solutions available on the marketplace. This information enables the customer to evaluate how well these solutions meet its needs. For example, a customer acquiring a new billing system may want to compare a traditional client-server solution and a cloud-based solution against each other. Thirdly, the tendering process can also help the customer to clarify its own procurement needs. For example, a customer might have problems with its existing business premises, but it does not know if it would be most sensible to renovate existing premises, rent new premises, or perhaps launch a development project aimed at increasing remote working. Bids from suppliers may give the customer valuable additional information that helps it to solve this question. Public tendering processes are also subject to several potential benefits. Open competition plays an important role in reducing corruption and promoting competition, leading to increased efficiency. The requirement for the transparency of procurement documents also contributes to increased transparency of public sector projects. In this figure, tendering processes can be categorized as to whether the winning bidder is selected on basis of price alone or whether other factors, such as the scope of the bid, supplier references, and payment terms are taken in account in supplier selection. If only the price is used as the decisive criterion, the customer will have to specify the project scope in great detail, for example through detailed drawings and material specifications. If the decision-making is based not only on the price, but also on other factors, it is important to describe them and their weights clearly so that suppliers can match their bids. In practice, when there are multiple criteria for decision-making, the customer usually receives substantially different proposals from suppliers, and when the decision is based solely on the price, the bids are very similar in content. Tenders also differ in terms of how accessible they are for suppliers. Information on open competitions is widely and transparently communicated, typically via electronic channels. This open tendering procedure is common for public project procurement. For example, Ministry of Economic Affairs and Employment of Finland has its own Hilma channel on the internet where information on topical purchases is available to anyone. In restricted tenders, the customer limits the number of suppliers from whom it is willing to accept bids. Limiting is often done using the customer's previous experience of different suppliers, openly available information, and sometimes information specifically requested from suppliers, such as lists of reference projects. Restricting the number of suppliers saves the customer's resources, as only a limited amount of bids will be received. Achieved time savings can be very significant, especially when the procurement decision is based on a number of selection criteria. Restricted tendering is very typical for private sector projects. In closed negotiations, the customer invites a few suppliers to negotiate for the possible implementation of a project. These suppliers work in close and continuous interaction with the customer, participating in project definition, for example by suggesting technical solutions based on their own core competencies. At the end of the negotiations, the customer selects the most appropriate supplier. When deciding on the type of tender, the customer will consider several points. These typically include legislation. Legislation may impose limits on the choice. For example, public procurement should be generally accessible to anyone. Understanding of own purchasing need. In how great detail can the customer describe its own needs? If the project scope can be clearly defined and will not change later, the winning bid can often be selected on basis of price. On the other hand, if the customer's understanding of its own needs and what technological solutions can best respond to these needs is limited, there's little reason to limit the freedom of suppliers to propose differing solutions. Finally, experience of previous cooperation. If the customer has positive experiences in working with certain suppliers, it is often wise for the customer to ensure that these suppliers have both the motivation to participate in the tendering process and the chances to succeed in it. Forcing close suppliers to compete in an open tender on a low price basis would not support this goal.